So you want to play Gangplank, eh? Alright, you came to the right place. My name is Minuteman, and I'm a Gangplank main, and I have been for about 2 seasons now. I started at the end of Season 3, right during the off-season, and began through Season 4. I went from Silver 4 to Diamond 3 with him over the course of that season. And since I've kind of taken a back seat to ranked, work has been getting in the way and a lot of that stuff, so I've only been able to keep my account in Diamond. It's Diamond 5 currently, and I am hoping to get better, but for the time being, that's not important. However, I have played almost 1,000 or more Gangplank games at this point. I was at multiple points last season and at 1 or 2 points this season the best Gangplank in NA, according to OPGG and a couple other sites like Lol King, or Lol Skill, rather. And this is a quick Gangplank guide just as a primer. This is things you need to know and things you should make use of as a Gangplank player if you are choosing to pick this champion. I will say, to start off with, here's some things you should know. The character archetype of Gangplank is an off-carry. He's a bruiser. He's very Dota-like, I'd like to say. Design-wise, he requires patience and requires lots of game knowledge. He doesn't just kind of do stuff. And going hand-in-hand with that is the fact that he's very unforgiving. You will die if you don't have spacing and map awareness. You have to be smart with this champion. This is not an Ahri. This is not a Lee Sin. He doesn't have the ability to get out of trouble or engage and disengage very quickly and easily. It's you have to be very smart with what you do and how you do it. GP is very versatile. He can build many different ways. With the addition of the recent Runeglaive item, he can now build AP. He can build tanky. He can build damage. He can build bruiser. He can build auras. He can build a lot of things. And you have to realize that. And I think that's part of the reason he's strong, is because he's one of the few champions left who can build pretty much whatever he wants and succeed. He's special in a sense that he's a crit bruiser, in that a definition of a bruiser in my eyes is somebody who is naturally tanky in certain ways, but still primarily is used for their damage. I'm looking at Renekton, maybe a Vladimir. I'd say Vladimir is certainly somewhat of a bruiser just because he is very tanky while still dealing an obscene amount of damage. Rumble is he's a mage in that sense. GP is similar in that he has some natural tankiness from his W and his early flat stats. He doesn't have as much late game, but he still applies early. He is kind of naturally tanky thanks to his heal and the ability to kind of cleanse CC and run away. But he still is primarily used for damage. If you don't go any damage on GP, usually it's not the best way to win games, because when put into a supportish role, he suffers the lack of damage from his Q. And if you can't hurt with Q, then you're really not going to do a whole lot. But that said, he scales with stats other champions don't. Pretty much the only other champion in the similar place, a top laner or a jungler in some senses, that can build the items he builds is pretty much just Garen. Nobody else scales with crit the way Gangplank does, and he's very special because of it. When I say that 2009 shit, I mean GP is handcuffed by his old design flaws. He does not have a lot of things other champions have. No mobility. His scaling is very harsh. He doesn't have any MR per level. His mana costs are very high. A lot of people debate whether or not to get tier. I think it's terrible. But it does hurt him, and you will feel clunky and kind of held back compared to a lot of other champions that have a lot of free spells. They don't have a lot of cooldown management. You got your Echo, you got your Riven, you got a lot of champions these days that are popular in the meta that are usually just popular because they have the ability to play fast and loose and succeed while doing it. GP does not. He is very clunky, and you will have to learn to get around those problems if you want to succeed. He has a very big lack of cohesion, goes hand in hand with what I just said. His non-Q spells have very long cooldowns. His non-Q spells have very harsh mana costs. His W is a 65 flat mana cost, which does hurt early. His E scales up to 70 mana. His ult is still about 100 mana, a little bit less if you rank it, I think. And you're gonna be hurting for mana. It's gonna be there, and you have very long cooldowns. You can't spam your spells, even with full CDR builds. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be really hard to really crank out those spells. He gets easily bullied by many champions, and I mean that. There's very many. The list of counter picks is very long. The main ones you might see are Riven, Aurelia, Pantheon. You might see a smart player will pick Darius or Tryndamere, somebody who can just kill you and then keep pushing. There's a lot of those situations. Somebody might pick Volibear, somebody with some kind of CC you can't cleanse. It's very hard to deal with. He can't get bullied. And yeah, he's a hybrid champion. He's got AD damage, AP damage is part of the reason Shiv is so good. With, like I said earlier, the new Runeglaive, he can build AP. And he deals hyper damage. Simple as that. He can build pretty much any damage he wants. Play the Rune King, Leandries, IE, Last Whisper, fucking Rageblade, whatever you want. And I would say he's very rewarding. I'd say in all my time playing him, I have learned that when played at a high level, he is extremely fun. He is a great team team play champion. He's a team fighter at heart. He's meant to be played with other people around him. He's very fun. He's schmaltzy in the way that he's goofy looking. He's just a big old motherfucking pirate ready to shoot people, eat some oranges, fuck some bitches, whatever you gotta do to get your rocks off. So with that said, let's move on to the rest of the quick guide here. I'll actually get into some of the specifics about what you should do if you want to succeed. And we'll put on some appropriate music in the meantime. This is the Real Mackenzies. Alright, so let's move on here. So when you're looking at GP, you actually want to look at who he emulates in his playstyle. And I would say Jace and Nunu are the two champions that really encapsulate everything that GP really is. He's a hybrid champion. If you follow Jace's, he's got a very safe lane phase. He's not team reliant, but he's still a very good team fighter, as in no matter what you do, as long as you're with your team, you're giving them buffs, you're helping them fight with your ultimate and your Q. You have fantastic scaling once you have items finished, and you have a lot of opportunities to succeed because you by yourself can succeed in lane as long as you're not too stagnant in your farming and all that kind of thing. He also is a very good solo laner. He does kind of suffer when engaged on heavily because he doesn't have the self-preservation that Jace does, but he is still very good at it. He's very similar to Nunu in the sense that he is an old-school champion. He has a lot of slows, he has a big self-heal, he can keep himself alive. He has great level 1 potential because of his base scaling and because of his first spell being so great for dueling, while Nunu's is very good for objective control with monster killing. And his ultimate's very similar. It's a big AoE slow. And he also has a buff spell, so late game, as long as you're not dying, you're giving your AD carry some buffs, and you're really helping your team. I think these two champions right here are the ones that kind of encapsulate what GP is and how you should think of when you're playing him. You should kind of consider him a mix between these two. Moving on a little bit, we'll look at the spells GP has. His Q is a ranged poke and an unhit proc, pretty simple, pretty, cut and dry. It's parlay, it's a ranged auto attack. That's what you have. It's very few other few champions have everything similar, and it's very good. It's part of the reason Sheena's so good and whatnot. W is a self-heal and a cleanse. 8 oranges and it was K, that meme everybody loves. His E, a passive AD movement speed boost. And when activated, it is given twice as effective to your team, yourself, as an aura. So it's a very good spell, I think. A little mediocre considering how high the mana cost and the cooldown are and is. And then, of course, your ultimate, Cannon Barrage, one of the last true globals in the game. It is a global area of effect damage over time nuke, which means that you use it, and the damage will start and will end after 7 seconds. Total damage is very high. Each proc itself actually a little bit low, but with some AP you can make this very respectable. So, beyond just what the spells are, you should really focus on maxing Q and W in lane, because they are the best ways to get fights out, and without fighting power, you're going to kind of lack the ability to come out of your lane phase very strongly. Now, you can max E, and it's a good option. You can max pretty much whatever you want on GP, and you'll be totally fine. But for the most part, you want to have W in your early rotations just so you can trade more. The sustain it offers is very good. It's the best base heal in the game. It's very, very, very efficient in the sense of just casting it once will help bring you up in health. With some defensive masteries, it's very good also. And it just helps you get through laning phase easier. So with that said about abilities, obviously Q and W are your best fighting ones, and E and R are your map presence and teamfight presence spells. Moving on past that, we'll go to summoner spells. I honestly think the best options to go with are Flash Ignite, just for kill potential and playmaking ability. But you can mix other things in there. You can mix an Exhaust in there if you need to duel somebody. Like Ignite's not going to be great versus champions with very strong shields, such as Riven, or somebody who maybe needs a lot of attack speed, since it's a Tryndamere. Maybe you want that Ignite or the Exhaust. They both work. But Teleport is obviously what people tend to prefer right now when they go top lane, because it is a great map presence spell, and it is a great lane phase spell. It does limit your dueling and kill potential, and GP doesn't have a lot naturally. So unlike somebody like Jax, who kind of doesn't need Ignite to kill people, you kind of do need Ignite to kill people, especially those who have heals. So primarily you want to stick with something like maybe Flash Ignite or Flash Teleport. You can mix Ghost and Exhaust into there. Ghost would be a lot better if Flash just wasn't so good. It's just the simple fact that Flash is amazing, and you should use it on basically everybody. There's very few champions who should just use Ghost instead. And GP already has good natural movement speed, so it's not a must. But it is decent. I've used it to good effect myself in the past, and I've used it recently, so it does work. Just putting that out there. Moving on, we'll go into Masteries. Now, this is just a Mastery page that you might use in lane. I have highlighted most of the Mastery points you want to pay attention to each of the trees. In the defensive tree, with the new Mastery changes, you actually want to focus on Swiftness and Tenacity early in the tree, as well as Juggernaut for obvious reasons. For GP, the Oppression Mastery towards the bottom of the defensive tree is very good because your alt and passive both apply slow, which means basically anybody you fight at any given time is dealing 2% less damage to you. So that is paramount. If you're going to go deep in the defensive tree, get that Mastery. In the offensive tree, you're looking for the flat for AD is very good. Executioner is very good for making sure people die. And lower in the tree, obviously, Devastating Strikes is the one you want to go with since it offers armor penetration and magic penetration since GP does hybrid damage. Early in the tree, I forget the name of the Mastery, but is the one that offers you 2% increased damage in exchange for 1% increased damage to yourself. This is very efficient considering you are melee and you get the full benefit of it, even though you are semi-ranged. In the utility tree, not a lot of points are great early because it doesn't give you flat fighting stats such as the other trees. It doesn't give you tenacity or health or AD or armor or anything like that, which you really do need. But it does give you movement speed. You can get it with swiftness there. You can get greed and bandit, very important if you are going support. I will go into support in a later guide, but for now, just be aware of those points in the utility mastery tree. Going forward a little bit, we'll look at the rune setups. Now, you can have a lot of runes. You can work with pretty much anything on GP. When it comes to offense, the simple stuff usually works the best. AD and armor pen seem to be best. Crit chance and crit damage are good, but not as reliable because obviously they're not as good as flat stats. Flat stats are very good, especially early in the game. A flat AD will help you farm. Attack speed will help you, last hit. And stack your passive faster, that sort of thing. And armor pen and AD seem to scale a little bit better in the mid-game, but crit chance and crit damage do work. Just not, consistently. They will be hit or miss, as crit chance tends to be. For defense, keep it simple. Obviously, health, armor, magic resist. It's better to go armor when you're going to be doing a lot of early trading, or you're going to be fighting somebody who's very AD-based, such as a Trinimir or a Jax. Health seems to scale best, because you can build armor with Quince. Armor used to be the best back before the seals were nerfed, but it is still very good. And health per level and flat are both very good. Magic resist per level is kind of a must-buy when it comes to glyphs. You can go CDR. It does work, but I would recommend magic resist per level simply because GP does not have magic resist per level naturally, and he will be bursted by mages come late game when you do get into fights and AoE spells are being chucked everywhere. Movement speed, lifesteal, and all those other kind of quints you might want to use are viable. It's up to you to try them. I've used a bunch to different great effects. I've used different mix of quints, and it all depends on your preference. So get out there and try the ones you like. A flat AD is always good. Flat armor is nice. Penetration is good. All those good things are very nice. Movement speed's worked. All depends on what you like and what you do. When it comes to items, I'm just going to try to keep things simple here because they could talk about items for days on end, but we'll just try to keep it simple here. These are kind of my tier lists arranged with items. When you look at the God tier, Sheen items are very good simply because their build orders are fantastic. They offer plenty of utility. They're very dense items. They give you a lot of slot efficiency, and slot efficiency is very important to Gangplank. So you really want to focus on those items early on in your builds. You want them first or second usually in most games. You want to go Gauntlet if you're going a little bit bruisery, and Trinity if you're going more damage. And Trinity is even good even if you are bruiser because it offers... It's pretty much the best single damage item you can buy on GP for a lot of reasons. I'll go into depth about that some other time, but right now we're just focusing on this right now. When it gets to high tier offense and defense, you want to buy things that are going to scale in the late game. I would argue that items like Last Whisper and Ghostblade are actually better than IE, simply because they're cheaper and faster to buy, and they remain relevant into late game because of their passive and active components. They're a little better than just the raw damage that IE offers because they offer the ability to either get a tower faster or kill a tank faster than IE might. You're going to kill squishies regardless if you have some damage items built, so it's usually better to deal with the tanks because they're going to be in the front line, which is what you're dealing with this Gangplank. You're low range, and it's going to really come into play late game. Mid-tier offense and defense, you usually only want to grab those in a situational sense, like you want to grab a Thornmail if the enemy has 3 auto-attack champions, such as like a Fiora, a Jinx, a Vayne, or, a Yasuo, something like that. Somebody's going to auto-attack a lot. You want to grab Banshee's Veil for, long-range CC and things like those. Mid-tier offense, you want to only get those items in certain situations. Blade the Rune King if you're against tanks. Tiamat if you need to farm, such and such. Same thing with situational offense and defense. Buy those items when you are presented with a situation where those items would be optimal over the high-tier options. Usually, things like Frozen Heart and Visage are best, but you could switch into a Warmugs or a Xerot Portal if you need to, really stay on the map and sustain up without using a lot of mana. For auras, Zeke's and Locket are by far the best. Locket only when your team won't buy it, which 90% of the time they will. Junglers and supports basically know how great that item is, and they will get it most of the time. But if they do not, I heavily recommend getting it. Zeke's is good. Not a lot of other champions build it. You can. Late game, you will give your team 40 AD just by having your E fully ranked and using it with this item. That is a Last Whisper worth of AD, folks. That is very good. When it comes to boots, you want to look up there. We're looking at Lucidity Boots and Tabi are your main options, because CDR is kind of hard to itemize for when it comes to raw stats. You can itemize for it, but it's a little difficult, so sometimes getting Lucidity Boots first helps you a lot. CDR is important on Gangplank, it does work. Just to have your ult up and your spells up, and you need more shoots to do more damages. It's the simple fact about your Q. Situational boots are obviously situational, Merc Treads for heavy CC, Swifties for lots of slows, Mobility Boots for map presence, and Sorcerer Shoes if you go in AP. Early lane buys, kind of simple here. Sheen, Cutlass, and Zeal are usually your best bets. So is Avarice and Phage. Pretty much all those items are great early on in lane phase. To trade more, to farm more, to sustain more, whatever floats your boat. And for pots and trinkets, to start the game, usually Flask is a fantastic item, because you will burn through a lot of mana on GP. Iron Pot and Sorcery Pot are both, I think, the best late game pots, because Sorcery Pot allows you to do lots of damage to champions as well as objectives, such as towers and inhibs and whatnot. I would say Greater Stealth Totem is fantastic, just because it allows you to have a mini Sightstone, which is very good come mid-game when map vision is very important to make sure you can teamfight properly. But you can go Sweeping Lens, not Sweeping Lens, but I forget what the blue item's called, the Scouting. Trinket, it is very good for avoiding face checks and such those. So when you get into Runeglaive and things, those are new. I've been testing them. They seem very good, but it does take a little while to ramp up. Once you finish the Runeglaive, you can diversify your build into more AP items, because now your Q is an AP nuke, which allows you to proc things like Leandries, allows you to proc things like Ludens. Very good come late game. Now, as my last slide here, I'm just going to go into a quick efficiency chart here. I'm just going to show you why I think people shouldn't build raw crit damage. I think they should focus more on a well-rounded build. We'll just kind of show you that now. So what people think is optimal is on the left here. I think the pros of a build like this are obviously the massive damage it offers. It's very good, it's very flashy, it's very fun. But at the same time, it's not reliable come very late game. It is reliable mid-game if you can get this quick, if you can get this easily, if you're farmed, if you're fed, whatever it is. If you have the gold to build this, I suggest building it, because when you're ahead, this can keep you ahead by just murdering 80 carries in 2 Qs, especially with crits. What's bad about this build is how unreliable it is for killing tanks. And when I say unreliable, I don't mean you won't be able to kill a tank. If you got Last Whisper and all this damage, you're going to kill the tank. But it's still going to take you, like, a full couple spell rotations, and by the time that spell rotation is over, you might have killed the tank, but now you're dead, and the 80 carry on the enemy team is alive. So when you're chain CC'd, or when you're dealing with a team fight, you're usually not going to stay alive for very long with this build unless you expertly dodged everything and still did enough to get your damage off. Very hard to do in the current state of the game with all the tanks and supports, shields, items, GA, Banshee's Veil. All these things people finish late game. It's really hard to really get things done with a full damage build on GP. He does not have the spells to really crank out the damage while being safe himself. He does. If you are going to dive, you're going to die. It's going to happen. You're very susceptible and whatnot. Very expensive also, and doesn't guarantee kills late game. If people have full builds, you're usually not going to kill them with this build anymore. It's going to be very hard to burst people because they'll have their at least 1 or 2 armor items. The mages will have Zhonya's, the 80 carries will have GA, as I said. Not only that, but if they have like a Janna or a Nami or somebody, they're going to have somebody healing them and kiting for them. So this build doesn't guarantee you kills. Now on the right, you see a build that's a little more optimal because, hey, it gives you the ability to be a bruiser. It gives you the ability to survive through these fights and, you know, be one of the last people standing, to go in and survive, to go in, do some damage, maybe not as much as the first build, but enough to kill people, and still get things done. So, yeah, you just want to look at something more like this. A Frozen Heart and a Visage alone will let you survive most things you might run into during a team fight, and having Trinity Force, Ghostblade, and Last Whisper will let you kill mostly everybody. The only people I see you running into that would not die from those 3 items are people who have ridiculous amounts of health stacked, such as a Gragas or a Zac with a full build, you know, their Warmogs, Randuins, Thornmail, what have you. Now, the main con to this build is you just can't 2-shot squishies anymore, and you have worse 1v1 potential against characters that outscale you, such as a Tryndamere or an Aurelia, who have true damage and on-hit effects, and less crit chance. But all in all, you can still kill people with this build. If you finish this, you will be a very strong team fighter. You might not be such a strong assassin with your burst from your Q, but you'll still be able to affect team fights in a much better way. Okay, with all this said, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I got this in under 20 minutes. I hope you guys enjoy it, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or hit me up on my stream. It's twitch.tv/Minuteman, or hit me up on my Twitter, which is twitter.com/Minuteman. I appreciate you watching. Thank you, and you have a great day.